Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our live stream at Mindvalley. For those of you who joined, we did have an audio glitch at the beginning, but don't worry. Using the technology of YouTube, we're going to make sure we start fresh, everybody together right here. My name is Jason Marc Campbell. I'm a host here at Mindvalley. Maybe some of you have listened to my podcast, which is Superhumans at Work, where I usually speak about growth in career aspects. But today, on this live stream, we're going to be talking about integral life. Thank you, everybody in the chat who gave me a good thumbs up about the sound not being here. Now we are good. Little technical glitch, but if you guys want to show some love to Darren in the background fixed everything. Much love to you, Darren, and much love to the community here on YouTube. We've been doing these lives weekly, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, always picking something that is relevant and fun to talk about that usually coincides with some of the big activities that happen at Mindvalley as well. We're going to be talking about integral life, which is actually the latest work that we've actually been doing with the one and only Ken Wilber. I'd be curious to know who here knows about Ken Wilber. If you've heard of him, have you ever studied integral theory, the theory of everything when it's related to consciousness? This is not going to be an easy session. Matter of fact, a lot of these concepts are extremely advanced spiritual kind of concepts. So if you're just getting started, you'll realize that this comes at you like a freight train. And if you haven't registered yet, there is a masterclass that is completely free with Vishen Lakhiani and Ken Wilber himself explaining the concepts of integral theory and why it's so important. And I want to give a hint or a clue to everybody listening that might not have been disclosed in that recording, which is it was actually recorded over a year ago. Like, they went into the studio and they recorded this amazing class that we've been wanting to introduce at Mindvalley for years. And the one and only Ken Wilber shared his amazing message. And here's what's fascinating about that, is there isn't a time more than now that we need a tool to understand what is happening in the world right now. Like, there's some shifts happening, right? I mean, we've seen it, we've felt it, we're living through it, changes are happening, big decisions are being made that will affect the world in the coming month. And there's a lot of things going on right now where we have to look at things in a way of us versus them, right and wrong, my way or everybody else doesn't understand. And a lot of these elements of duality are not that foreign to the human experience. Matter of fact, I've went through this masterclass, and I know we're going to put up the link in the chat so you can register to it too. I left this masterclass having a lot of compassion for the entirety of humanity. I left learning the right way to look at things from different lenses to realize that for all the things that I judged on others was simply me looking at it with a fogged up lens, out of focus, and not truly taking the time to understand. And so I'd love to actually open up with a question for those of you who are tuning in live. If you're watching the replay, know that every time we do these lives, we're going to have some interactions that happen. And after the end of the video, we always stay a little extra to answer direct questions from the live chat. But if you're watching the replay, still pay attention here and leave some comments about this particular question that I think is relevant right now, which is, what are some of the things that frustrate you in the world? Or what are things that annoy you in the world? What are things that you wish could be better? And so 3 things I want to explain. First, I'm going to give a disclaimer before I get into these 3 topics, which is, my name is Jason Marc Campbell. I am not Ken Wilber. Ken Wilber has put his life's work into developing this theory. It is extremely powerful, it is extremely thorough, and we're so excited that we're launching a quest that allows you to apply all the aspects of integral theory in every area of your life. And what I want to do is just share with you some of my ways of interpreting 3 of the major lenses that you can look at the world, that I have some level of understanding, that I'm hoping will be able to help you gain some understanding of the things that you actually are looking to understand in the world. I'm looking at some of the comments coming in here, and I'm seeing some that are quite generic, but they're still relevant. So I want to give Harsh a little heads up. Negative people are people that annoy you in the world. Fortnite's is a little more drastic, talking about dumb people. Okay, well, again, I would say there's usually a level of understanding, and I'm going to address that one specifically with a bonus towards the end. There's violence. Karen, thank you for bringing that up. when you're talking about violence in the world, why is there violence? Why is there these things going on? When I present these lenses that Ken speaks about, you're going to see that it gives you a whole lot of better understanding to understand that, matter of fact, as a species, if there was 100 yards to the evolution of our species, we're probably at the 4-yard line. I'd quote this from Neil Donald Walsh when he speaks about his conversations with God, explains spirituality from his lens, which not everybody agrees to, but can be agreed to by some. And this is really one of the core concepts of integral theory, is that it's a theory that allows you not to look at certain teachings, certain perspectives, certain religious groups as I know the way and every other way is wrong. It actually takes the time to say every single way has some right in it. And this is an important thing to look at, and it's an important thing to include as we are going through a major shift in the world. Matter of fact, a lot of us are rising up in our level, growing up in our level of consciousness, in our way of looking at the world. This growing up is making us look more in the world as a whole than as an us versus them. But there's still a lot of road to go. Matter of fact, this is the first element I want to talk about, which is the stages of growing up is a lens you can look at the world. This is one of the aspects that's shared in the masterclass. Vishen and Ken Wilber spent a lot of time together explaining what are the aspects of growing up. And here's what's fascinating that blew my mind listening to this masterclass is looking at the world from a lens of growing up using the models that are explained in integral theory has only been around for a little over 100 years. That's not a lot of time. That's a very short amount of time to have the models that develop the fact that we are actually going through growing up stages and everybody is at a different level, and we usually need to step into each single level as we escalate through this. If some of you have read the book Buddha and the Badass or The Code of the Extraordinary Mind, you'll see Vishen hints towards the work of Ken Wilber a lot in his literature because he is so inspired by his work. It is fundamental to what we do as Mindvalley because our goal as a company is how do we raise the consciousness of the planet by giving transformational education to the world. So this is why this model allows us to see where is everybody, where do we want to take them, and how do you actually allow yourself to grow in the process. And so, here, when we're talking about growing up, has anybody heard of those concepts such as egocentric, ethnocentric, world-centric, cosmic-centric, or cosmocentric? If you've heard of this, definitely say yes, I've heard of it in the comments so I can actually go into it. And wow, there's some powerful questions coming here, such as Luis asking, Mindvalley believe in God? That's actually a big part of integral theory is our understanding of spirituality, our understanding of God is so multifaceted because if you ask that question, I can ask, are you speaking of Allah? Are you speaking of the Christian God? Are you speaking as God, the universe that's permeated through everything that is explained through the conversations with God that's propagated by Neil Donald Walsh? Are you speaking about the concepts found in A Course in Miracles that speaks of everything being an illusion and that our holiness, our God is actually within us and that we need to actually look for ways to find our inner peace and our holy grail? There's so many different literatures out there, right? There's so many different ways that you can look at the world, look at spirituality, and we pick one and assume the rest is wrong. And what I love from this work is it gives you the filter to see why do we view it this way. And now for the benefits, I'm seeing here we got Harsh, we got Bharati, we got Dainana, we got Deepak, we got Jose, all talking about the fact that they've heard these terms like ethnocentric, egocentric, world-centric. And for the benefit of those who haven't heard these terms spoken by Vishen, there's a lot of YouTube videos where he goes deeper into this. But here's how we usually evolve, how we grow up, is at first we look for our own needs. We care about ourselves. And what happens, this is the egocentric, right? My needs, my survival, this is where we usually start. And then once you grow up, you start extending your level of compassion into a larger circle. And this is the ethnocentric. This is what's fascinating about ethnocentric. See, 60 to 70% of the world is ethnocentric. And the beauty of what I like about this theory is that there is no level that is wrong. Just like you can't hate on a toddler who sneezes and spills a glass of milk over a cake and ruins a beautiful cake that you had brought them, you basically look at it from a place of understanding, saying they didn't know any better, they made a mistake, that's all that happened. So when you're looking at these growing up stages, when you're at the ethnocentric level, it's a powerful level. It's really what allowed us as a species to bind as tribes. We'd get together as tribes and realize, wow, when we build a community, we can protect ourselves, we can maximize resources, we can start agriculture. And then as you grow more, you could say we can maximize, our GDP as a nation, or we can maximize the peacefulness and harmony that we find within our religious group. And ethnocentric has a vast amount of value in the world. It's allowed us to grow to the level that we are now. And it's only around 100 years ago or 200 years ago that we started going beyond the ethnocentric. See, a few people started realizing that, hey, if I look at others as them, if they're not part of my tribe, they are other, and then I decide to hate on them or sabotage them, you realize that that is not the worldview that actually encompasses the planet as a whole, as a human species, as unity. And this is a big part of Mindvalley. As I mentioned, the work from Ken Wilber has been foundational to the values we have at Mindvalley, which one of them is unity. And when we speak about unity is how do we make people have more compassion for more people, even outside of their ethnocentric groups that they care about? How do you extend that compassion for other groups that you don't belong to? And if you think about it, a lot of the issues that are happening today is a friction between these different ways of us looking at the world and our group, the us that we decide to include and the them that we decide to include. And the battles between the thems and the us's is a lot of what we witness because we're going through this growth phase. The world is radically shaking right now because every single space that there is that tension that happens as we're moving into a lot of models like the sciences, a lot of the philosophies, a lot of the principles that are moving forward on the planet are trying to make us more world-centric. And there's a lot of resistance because a lot of us are still at the ethnocentric level. And so we're staying close to our tribe. We're feeling like lack of defense of our own tribe means that we will lose as we move up to world-centrism. There's a massive gap of growing up, but it's awakening that is happening in front of us. We're seeing it. That's why there's tensions. That's why you're seeing the civil rights movements happening right now. That's why we're seeing a Republican, Democrat divide. Again, ethnocentric is really what's there. And how do we get to step up and look at it from a place of compassion, realizing that there's an understanding that we can have for every single group that is out there, because every one of us is doing the best that we can based on the level of understanding that we have, and radically going out there and hating on the other group. I'm going to touch on that last. You'll realize has a lot more to do with your own ideologies that's holding you back from growing to the world-centric level. So I'd love to know from the audience here who feels that they're trying to move to the world-centrism or they're feeling comfortable at the ethnocentrism. I'd be very curious to know. And towards the end of this, we're going to do a Q&A because this is a sensitive topic. It's a beautiful debate to have. And one of the things I don't talk about is the cosmocentric, but here's the key part about cosmocentrism, is when you have world-centrism, you can still have a judgment around the people that are not at your level yet. And there's a lot of that too. There's a lack of understanding, a lack of compassion as people are going through the different stages of growing up. So if you're at a world-centric level and you feel that there's a lot of dumb people, you feel that there's a lot of stupid people, you're wondering why there's violence, when you step to cosmocentric, you basically understand that there's a space for all of them and they're all part of our growth process. They're all part of our development process. And if we simply look at it from a lens that, oh my God, these people haven't evolved to world-centrism, how dare they? That's the same as doing an us versus them at your cosmocentric level. Matter of fact, you're compartmentalizing your world-centric view into an ethnocentric system that hates against other people that aren't at your level. And so thus, you're still ethnocentric. That blows your mind a little, and this is the concepts around integral theory, is it makes you think and it makes you look at everything from a different lens, and it's extremely powerful for us to take steps back and take the time to think about what's happening, take some responsibility about it, and seek ways that we can do better. If you haven't signed up to the masterclass, it is one of the most beautiful, I haven't been as shaken and enlightened in a masterclass since the one with Neil Donald Walsh for Awaken the Species that came out 3 years ago. That was a profound masterclass, and this one is equally mind-blowing because I'm just touching on a sliver of what is discussed between Vishen and Ken Wilber. The man is a genius, and don't let yourself get lost. I feel that at the beginning, they talk about some complex topics, but I promise you, stick around, especially towards the end. He shines a mirror on a lot of our own behaviors that we'll be able to go, oh my God, I've played a part in this, and there's ways we can do better. Hugely, hugely valuable and so timely. So if you haven't registered for that, I would highly encourage you just click on the link that's been shared in the chat, or it's based on the comment and description. It's absolutely free. Just sign up to the masterclass, listen. I can't wait to see feedback from you in the comments on this video once you went to watch it, because I'll be responding to these and looking to hear what was the most magical insights you've gotten. What I've given you here is just a quick insight of what's happening from one of the 5 dimensions that he speaks about in integral theory. Again, not the most basic spiritual concepts or philosophical concepts. It's the theory of everything. It's the most advanced things I've ever seen in such a beautiful, structured way. Now, I wanted to cover 3 here. The second one, I'm going to spend little time about it. But here's what happens. Has anybody ever had an awakening? Like, have you ever had a spiritual experience? And I don't know what your religious group is. Possibly, if let's say you are of a Buddhist descent, like maybe this is feeling of nirvana, connected with all. Or maybe you had a moment, if you're Christian, that is like you have been blessed with Jesus, you have been in contact, you felt the hand of Christ touch you, and it could only bring you joy, peace, and love. Or maybe you were in a deep meditation or doing breath work, like whatever modality. A lot of people also decide to take possible experiences with plant medicine and reach these states. Have you ever heard of these people speaking of these deep awakenings? Matter of fact, every major religion seems to speak about it, and a lot of people are still seekers that are actually looking for these awakening. It's something that's part of our culture as humans. And this is what's powerful. This is what I love about integral theory, because it explains these levels, right? How people go into this scale towards awakening. And these are powerful experiences that we can have as humans. Like, it could be the moment that you're in love, like you feel love and you're like, wow, I've never felt so connected. That is part of the human experience. And it's a single lens and axis that you can look at your human experience that allows you to feel super connected. And this is what's powerful from the masterclass, okay? You listen to this and you realize that depending on your level of growing up, right, you're going to be able to interpret that experience very differently. For example, if you have it at the egocentric level, which is just the selfish care, right, and you have an awakening experience, you'll more than likely attribute it to yourself. You'll be like, wow, I must be amazing. I must be special. I just had this experience. I am an incredible human being, better than everybody else, right? Because you've had an experience while you were still at the egocentric level. Now, this could be pretty dangerous, because this would be someone that would then show up and say, I am the reincarnation of whatever deity. I am an ultra powerful person. I feel that I can do no wrong. And you can see that this could be a very powerful and dangerous person to be walking on the earth. Now, if you're at the ethnocentric level, this is the example that's shared, which is then you would actually attribute it to whatever is the epitome of experiences that is shared by the community and the tribe. For example, I've used some examples such as I've reached enlightenment, and I'm not Buddhist, and I don't know the terms as familiar, so I'm not going to use it as an example, but I would say, wow, I've experienced Christ consciousness, right? If you're Christian and you've reached that amazing bliss level, you would share with everybody that when you deeply believe in Christ, you will be able to reach these levels. And so you see, you'd have an attachment that's now ethnocentric, which is under the conditions of the tribe that I am part of, I was able to experience such, and you would want to recruit everybody to be able to do the same. And you wouldn't understand why anybody would want to resist your way of teaching, because you've had such a profound experience that you wish to share with the rest of the world, right? At the world-centric level, you start understanding that this is a powerful thing that we all have access to as human beings. And we have various ways that we can reach that, and we can be understanding and empathetic about how we can reach that, and it becomes a beautiful thing that is part of the human experience that we can acknowledge and realize that the way that we reach it can be done in many ways. Our way is good, other ways are amazing, and this is beautiful. But in the masterclass, they speak about why this is part of our human journey. And the more that we're able to pair the waking up with the growing up, you get to have more powerful experiences. Matter of fact is, if you're showing up, or sorry, I'm not going to say that word because that's another stage. If you're waking up and having that amazing epiphany, you will be charged up. You will be ready to take on the world. You will have found your calling. You will have found your passion. I believe it's dharma. If anybody is Buddhist, can make sure to correct that. I believe your dharma is your duty. This is what usually comes in these awakening moments, is you feel you have direction, you're ready to go, and this is beautiful. Now, of course, you're always going to be able to get into these states. Sometimes it waves, and that's okay. But it's something that usually accelerates your growing up. And you want to make sure to catch yourself so that you're not doing it from an egocentric place, but you're really trying to grow up in the process. I hope that you're already agreeing with me. And I'm seeing here that Zwad is already saying, aiming to become cosmocentric. I believe that we're all in us. There's a part of us that knows we want to become cosmocentric. But there's a lot of needs that we need to experience. See, one of the things I love from Ken Wilber's work is that he doesn't say you need to abolish the ego. Matter of fact is, we live with our ego. We experience it. We're going through it. And although there's a higher version of ourselves within us that knows that we're aiming towards cosmocentric, there are life experiences that we go through. And that is the process of growing up. And that's why whenever you're at any level, or you look back at anybody else that's going through the same levels, maybe not have made as much progress as you, you can have a lens of understanding, compassion, which is so much more powerful than a lens of judgment and a lens of criticism. Which brings me to the third element I wanted to bring today. And this is the one that absolutely blew my mind. I'd love to hear, is this making sense to you? We're talking about growing up. We're talking about waking up. If you're loving this, please give me some love in the comments. And if you haven't signed up to the masterclass yet, I promise you it'll be the best hour you spend going into these topics. It'll get your week going, thinking. You'll be having amazing conversations with friends about it. And you'll actually have a deep level of compassion to understand whether you're the biggest divide that I see. I mean, I'm here in Indonesia, in Bali. I know I'm Canadian, but everybody's watching the US, and we're seeing some of the divide. You're going to go through this masterclass, and you're going to be able to extend a lot of compassion to people who have different views than you. And that is one of the most powerful ways that you can approach life, one of the most powerful ways that you can approach your reality and see how much change you can have by seeing that you don't show up with judgment, but you understand, you seek to understand. Even if the other person isn't doing as much effort as you, you'll be able to play your part in a very powerful way. That's what you have control over. Now, this one, oh my God, this last element, I'm going to watch the masterclass because they talk more in depth with it, but here's what I want to share. They talk about cleaning up. Now, this is just 3 of the 5 things they speak about in the masterclass, but this one is the one that hit me right in the heart. Cleaning up, what's that? It's the fact that we all have a part of ourselves that we may not want to admit. Maybe there's a part of yourself that could be considered your dark side. If you've ever heard of things like shadow work, if you ever heard of anything about integrating your own self or creating separation within yourself, this element of cleaning up is all about bringing to awareness all of those parts of yourself that you vastly deny. Here's the thing. At the beginning of this session, I asked some people to comment on what are the things that frustrate them the most around the world. And what this cleaning up does is it shines the lens right back at yourself, because a lot of times we take an element about ourselves that we don't like and we compartmentalize and reject it from ourselves so much that we actually stand for that very thing that is a part of us that we want to deny. And I want to share an example for myself that is not fun to admit, but I wanted to share it here because it might help some other people understand. But when I looked at that episode and I went, wow, the way they explain it just made so much sense. There's a part of me that I didn't want to admit, but I will share, is a lot of times, well, first off, my big mission, my passion, my massively transformational purpose. For those of you who might have done the networking quest or have done the Habit of Ferocity quest with Stephen Kotler, and the other one with Keith Ferrazzi. Powerful quests, by the way. If you're at All Access, you'll definitely enjoy these quests. In it, it makes you define your massively transformational purpose. Now, what I've realized that for me is I want to teach businesses to care more, because the more businesses care, the more that they're actually going to be able to make a better impact in the world. And I want to teach them how they can sell better by caring more about the way they sell and sell from a place of love. I want buyers to be more educated. I want people to invest in businesses that care. I want the great businesses to thrive. I don't want the bad businesses making the world worse to thrive. I want to teach the tools to the good businesses, because the more businesses care, the more impact can happen. And here's what happens. I am hypercritical when I see people that don't care. I'm hypercritical about it. Like, I see someone who does something like without caring, and I'll judge them. And what I realize is because there's a part of me that's quite selfish, that doesn't care. And I don't want to face that part of me. Instead, I become very judgmental on anybody who does anything that shows that they don't care. But I'm very forgiving on any act that I do that didn't show the amount of care that I could. I had more care in me, and I choose not to fully show up caring. And so what I do, instead of looking into it and doing the shadow work, I project it on somebody, and whatever action they do, I multiply it, because I take that part of me that I don't want to admit and I project it on someone else, so it makes it doubly more intense. When Ken Wilber started speaking about that, I was in shock. I was speechless, and I was like, wow, that is pretty intense. And so when you look at the things that frustrate you in the world, or the things you take a stand, or the things that other people do that you just don't tolerate, how much is that action a part of something that you have that you deny? That is something you don't want to look at, that you compartmentalize so much that you get to only see it within reflections of others. Ken calls it shadow boxing. Again, powerful stuff. And the aspect that happens from that is we get tormented because we don't have a full acceptance of us. And the point of this is that we're all on a journey of growing up. And we're not perfect. But if we use one of the tactics, which is actually compartmentalizing and not accepting everything that's a part of who we are now, you actually will run into issues. You'll see it'll bottle up. It'll make you do actions that don't make you grow up as fast as you could. And this is what's really powerful about doing this work when it comes to an integral life, is going to terms with every aspect of your life, seeing it, taking responsibility for it, and realizing that we're all on this beautiful journey trying to make sense of this crazy world. And when we have a lens that gives us various depths, various ways to understand the people that are similar, different, see where we are on our journey, see where we're going on our journey, having that clarity gives us a map. It gives us a roadmap. It gives us progress. It gives us a way to measure, and it also gives us a way to see at it so much clearly and in a way that's so much more beautiful that you can find peace, you can find happiness, and you can see the amazing progress that's happening around the world. And so with that, I know somebody at the beginning talked about negativity. When you go through this masterclass, you will be left feeling light and with a lot of positivity, understanding that we are going through some transformational times. And on the other side of that is going to be some very beautiful things that are coming. I'm very optimistic about the future, and I hope that once you start seeing things from this lenses of Ken Wilber's integral life, integral work, you'll see that it makes you make a whole lot of sense of this crazy world.